welcome to an exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. And today we are talking about the symbols. And there is a very good book written on that, and by a very famous author and a traveler, I would say. And so in this book, we are going to talk about the lotus in the sand, in the stone. And here, one thing is important. In these shows, Sat means truth, is an antonym of myth. Myth means imaginary, fake, or a lie. So when you combine with logos, mythology actually means a science of fake or imagination, because in Sanskrit, myth dhatu means a lie or a fake or an imagination. Opposite of that is Sat. So Sattology means science of truth. So in these shows are purely academic, with no affiliation to any group whatsoever. We are independent source, and we have great number of authors and you can say intelligentsia coming to share their experiences. So today we have a very special guest. She's an author, she's a traveler, and she's a wonderful speaker. And her recent book was released by one of the chief ministers of the largest state of India. So without delay, let us welcome Shri Anuradha Goyal.
Namaste. Thank you very much.
So Anuradha ji, first of all, lotus is such a great symbol, and I think your book Lotus in the Stone is a book about the symbolism of lotus in India across your travels, right?
Right.
So
Right.
what do
So
you explain about
lotus.
this book, please?
So I'll tell you what lotus means. So lotus is a flower, one which is universally found in India. You travel to any nook and corner of India, you will find lotus ponds. If you take a walk around the villages in the morning, you will see lotus in full bloom as the first rays of sun fall on the lotus buds. You will see ponds full of green, broad green petals of lotus. And lotus is said to be the purest flower that blooms in mud. So no matter what the world around you, you have the capability or the capacity to bloom like a lotus. And for this reason, lotus is considered one of the most auspicious elements in India, and we see it in Indian art everywhere. No matter where we travel, how old the building is, in all the ancient buildings of India, even medieval buildings of India, you will prominently see lotus. In Buddhism, they say that Buddha, when he got enlightenment, when he took first few steps, the lotus bloomed at every step that he took. In Hindu mythology, or Sattology as you call it, in Hindu scriptures, lotus is associated with Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity. It is associated with Brahma, the deity who is responsible for creation. And lotus is offered to almost all deities. So it is an integral part of India, both because it happens in the country. You can see it everywhere. It blooms everywhere. And second, because of the way it blooms. So you see it everywhere. So my journey to lotus was that I started looking for temples which are built in hard stone. And what I discovered is that once you go past the stone, what you see inside the temples is really the lotus, which is the soul of these temples, which is like 1,000 petals lotus, which you have to open, and which is also symbolic of our life. We slowly open our petals and get to know ourselves. I hope that answers.
No, what a beautiful explanation, Anuradha ji. It's amazing. You went right into the essence of the lotus.
Right.
One of the things, very famous Bengali poem, Kamala Dala Jala Jeevana Talamala, written by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and
Mhm.
in which he says that our life is tottering like a drop of water on a lotus petal. And
Right.
one of the qualities of a lotus petal is that no water can actually penetrate the leaf. It flows
Yes.
down. And so
Yes. Nothing
beautiful.
external can impact you. It essentially means that anything can come, but it cannot impact you. In fact, one of the names of the sun is that the one which makes the lotus bloom.
So beautiful. I think one of the things which people fail to realize, that nature teaches us so many things. and
Yes.
and this author actually, so in your travel, before I touch upon the author, in your travels, when you're seeing lotus stone in the stone, which refers to an architecture where you're referring to, so you must have definitely mentioned many temples and places where you went, where you took notice of that. And I'm sure, and I'm going to get your book, where we are going to see the lotus embedded in every single temple where you went. So,
Not just temples. That's what I'm saying. Not just temples.
uh,
Every building, every built space has lotus in some way or the form. Even the buildings which were built during Islamic time, you will see lotus.
that's amazing. Actually, when I went to Shanghai a couple of years back, and every part of the town has lotus everywhere. So it is common across Indian and Chinese culture also, which is obviously
Yes.
coming from India, because India has more
Right.
lotuses than China. So the
Right.
in terms of this thing. So what is the one feature that you saw or somewhere you saw? So, and also for viewers who do not know, that Delhi has a temple called Lotus Temple, and which
And
is
it's beautifully built in the shape of a lotus.
in the shape of a
And
lotus.
you must see it when you fly over Delhi. That's the time when you get an aerial view of that temple, and it's one of the modern architectural marvels of India. One
Right.
of the few modern architectural marvels.
Yeah, for Sydney, they show Opera House. For India, they show the Lotus Temple in one of them.
Yeah, they don't show as much, but they should.
They should.
Yeah.
So, is there a more symbolism attached to connecting lotus to every single building or architecture that you say, which you captured in
No,
the
it
book,
is
especially?
so, we have something called Mangal signs, of some auspicious signs. We have Ashtamangal, 8 auspicious signs, which includes fishes, conch shells, swastik. So, lotus is one of those Ashtamangal signs. So, it's the sign of auspiciousness, it's the sign of purity, it's the sign of prosperity, it's the sign of standing alone and still blooming. It is the sign of not letting the outer world impact your personality.
In the lotus petals, when we say
Mm.
that the no impurities can stay on it, and so therefore lotus is nama pankaj nabhaya, nama pankaj maline, nama pankaj netraya, namaste pankaj angre.
Ji, ji,
Pankaj
ji.
is
Even our chakras, chakras in our body, each chakra is associated with a lotus of certain number of petals and of a certain color. And if you read Sanskrit, and which I'm sure you do, you find beautiful names for each type of lotus. So a blue colored lotus is Indivar. Not many people know that Indivar means blue colored lotus. And Pundarik means a white colored lotus. And then there are names for each color of it, each hue of the lotus flowers, and lilies also, kumud as they are called.
and lotus is also very closely connected with Vishnu, right?
Yes,
Because he
yes,
holds it in one of the hands. And
yes.
since you
It's
mentioned,
one of his ayuds. Yeah, of the four things, Shankh, Chakra, Gada, Padma. So Padma is usually lotus, and his consort Lakshmi, she sits on. It's her asan, on which she says, and any description of any. So we have, like we have lonely planets today,
mhm,
which give us information about destinations. In the ancient times, we had Sthala Puranas, where they were more or less like the lonely planet guides of their times. And so you find beautiful descriptions of lotus ponds, and you would say that if there was a town planning of a sort, lotus ponds were an integral part of that town planning.
Mhm.
And you can still see them in some form and shape.
Yeah. In Kamal Patraksha, like when we say Kamal, lotus
Mm.
flower, the the whirl of lotus, when they say it, now somehow the Americans have a wrong impression about the lotus, and again that's a
Mm.
mythology, because they associate lotus with opium, and because of the
Opium.
some writings were there. So the if you see, many of the movies are made when they use the lotus symbol, and somehow it has developed a negative connotations in many Americans, because of
It
the,
must have been a code word, I guess.
yeah, it was a code word for China and for the
Yeah.
opium trade. So the mostly the projects of the CIA were named the Lotus projects. But here we are
Mm.
completely debunking that thought process here with the lotus here, because the lotus has a very sacred meaning in
Very
India,
secret. Yeah.
very sacred meaning in India. And you said there's a white lotus, there's a blue lotus, and there's a
There is a
pink
red
lotus.
lotus, there is pink lotus, and there are hues. There are yellow lotuses. I mean, you have them in all colors and shades and all sizes. I don't know if you've seen, there are these small little lotuses that you can see in village ponds.
So in this book, what is the specific thing you want to convey to the people, especially?
See, this is my personal journey of discovering India. I grew up in 70s and 80s and 90s, late 70s, 80s, 90s. And this was the time when we were reading textbooks which were pretty much written by from a very Western perspective.
Mhm.
And our view of India was, somebody built this, somebody built this temple, somebody built that. We never connected with who that somebody is.
Mhm.
And of course, our textbooks could teach us only a small, very miniature, minuscule part of the history that we have. And I won't blame them, because our history is so layered and so vast and so diverse, and we are the oldest living civilization, so we have thousands of years of history in any place you stand. So it is my personal journey of discovering India as I walked around India. So initially, 20 years back when I used to travel, I was like any other tourist, okay, you have a weekend off, let's go and see a new place. It was just entertainment. Travel was entertainment. And then as I started traveling, it became more of curiosity. And 2004, I started writing about it on a blog. And that's when I connected with a lot of people who were reading my travel logs. And it became a kind of an exchange forum where I would share what I have seen and people would share what I should see. If I was traveling somewhere, people will tell me about a lot of information. Sometimes people would turn up and show me something new in their cities and towns. So it became a very, very vibrant energy system for me, a sacred space which connected me to India. And over a period of time, I became interested in art history. So I went and did a course in art history in National Museum in Delhi. And that opened a lot of windows through which a destination or a place or a space can be seen. Then as I started walking around, I got attracted to temples, so I started exploring temples a lot. And initially temples were buildings for me, so it was all about which century was this built in, what is the style, what is the artistic style, which king built it, how long did it take to build, what technology was used. But eventually, when I kept visiting, it became all about the energy that temples hold. It became, I transformed from being a tourist to a traveler to an explorer to a pilgrim. So now, when I go to a temple, I do see the building, I do see the art, but that's not as important as the energy that that temple holds, the energy that it has preserved for thousands of years. And that for me is the lotus. And that's why I named the book Lotus in the Stone. That I went in search of a stone, but what I discovered inside was a lotus. It's a living thing. It's a living, blooming thing that gives a lot of joy, that gives you the guidance, and it kind of directs you in the direction you need to be in life. So that it's about my journey of discovering. It will give you Anybody who reads it, it'll give you a lot of lenses to look at India. So, for example, I have spoken about the language, the lens of language. We are a multilingual country. Lot of we speak, all of us speak different languages at home, but what we were conversing with each other through some common metaphorical language. So, I speak about the language of India. I speak about how we document our history. I speak about how we document our history visually on the walls of mostly of the temples of but on other buildings as well. I speak about the language of engineering. These temples which are standing for more than 1,000 years, despite being in sun and rain, despite facing all kinds of invasions, despite facing neglect, they have to be engineering marvels. Look at the Kailash temple in Ellora. It is a beautiful temple, no doubt, but it is also an engineering marvel. And some of our technology students and institutes need to study them and probably take inspiration for them. And we must not forget that these temples were built using indigenous technologies, and they are more suited for our kind of weather, unlike the glass and steel structures, which are just energy suckers in a weather like India.
So, in your experience, in this particular one, in your experience, what do you think is the most? You gave an example of Ellora, but where you found the maximum inspiration? I know it's difficult to distinguish because
No, I have
what.
mentioned many such places during my journey, which were kind of life changing or perspective changing moments for me. So I'll share one or two with you, but I have shared quite a few of them in the book. The temple of Khajuraho, Kandaria Mahadev temple at Khajuraho, it had a magical impact on me. I still remember that I was standing in front of it around 6 o'clock in the morning when the first rays of sun were falling on it. It shimmered like as if it's made of sandalwood. It changed colors. It was mesmerizing. The second temple, which had a similar impact on me, was Brihadeshwara in Tanjore, and both these temples had an impact which changed my relationship with temples forever.
So my one of my one of the things that we do is many Americans get attracted to not to the tourist destinations of India which are on the map, but they get attracted
Mhm.
to the ancient places of India. And I'm asking on their behalf. There's some questions have come up. So the ancient places of India, like most of the Americans get attracted to Varanasi, Kumbh Mela,
Mm.
one of the biggest
Mm.
attractions. There are.
My book begins with Kumbh Mela. In fact, if you allow me to read
Yes,
a
please,
paragraph, it
please.
begins with Kumbh Mela experience and how Kumbh Mela is actually what utopia would probably look like. So it says
I was there
in
in
the
Kumbh
cold.
Mela in the Prayag, in the last one in Prayag.
I speak about that only.
Yes.
In the cold January winter, I was standing amidst a million strangers in Prayag, observing the transient world from a transient land as part of a cyclic event. The Mela is a microcosm of the world as it is created, lived, and dissipated. On the temporary floodplains created by the receding waters of the Ganga and the Yamuna, at the point of their confluence, a miniature world comes up for a couple of months. People from all over the country come here to spend time for various reasons. For curious tourists who want to see the Naga sadhus, to sadhus from different akhadas who come here to fulfill their periodic meeting with the world and with other sadhus, all kinds of people turn up at Kumbh Mela. It is the longest living cultural tradition of India. The scale may have gone up and down during different phases of history, but it has continued unhindered. Its power lies in the fact that no one owns it, and at the same time, it belongs to everyone. It belongs to the one who turns up to be a part of it. No one invites anyone yet. Everyone turns up on the banks of the holy rivers on the right date and time. In it, I also saw the power of Indian calendar in full force. Most of us who grow up in urban settings do not even know our birthdays by the Panchang, but here you see half of humanity turning up based on that very Panchang. Is it the Panchang's way of saying it still rules the land?
I'll tell you my experience on Kumbh Mela and where I went there, and glad you captured that. It
Yeah.
was a city of lights. You know, I would say to all the Americans, next Kumbh Mela will be advertised
Actually,
heavily.
one is going on right now, but this time it's a scaled down version. The Haridwar Kumbh Mela is going on right
Going on
now.
right now, yes. So whenever it's there next time, don't miss it. You will see. It's, I call it the real United Nations, because every community, every culture, everybody is there. And uh, and the most important thing in the Kumbh Mela is to meet these people and hear from them, because I most of the people go there for tourists and taking pictures. But I've seen many Americans, I will say strictly for Americans, they go there in search. They don't go there just to take a bath. They just go to absorb the vibes and call it spiritual vibes, and experience the togetherness, which they miss, because as a country, America is a very lonely country.
Yes.
Everybody is so far apart, and hardly they congregations are very difficult to do because the distance is so high. It's a spread out place. So for them to experience that, a million plus people in one place, is amazing experience.
That
And
also, and the fact that, if you are there, you are a part of it. Nobody has to invite you, and you don't have to be invited, and but still when you land up there, you are welcome there just like the million others. Nobody owns it, that's the beauty of it.
it's an open invitation, and open, like, just go there, be part of it,
Yes, just land up there and be a part of it.
be a part of it. You don't have to be specifically, or you don't have to belong to any culture or faith to be part of there. You can be anyone and anybody. Everybody is
Yes,
welcome, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And everybody has some magical stories of meeting either the sadhus or fellow passengers or fellow pilgrims, if you can say. Everybody who's been to a mela has a story to say. So it's also the place where you go and collect stories for your lifetime.
For a lifetime, like it's a memory etched in your soul, you can say, right?
Yes,
Now,
yes.
coming back to your book, especially in your book, which what do you think, like, you have traveled so far, and I would say in search of the lotus, or seeing the importance of the lotus.
Yes.
So what do you say that, like, in terms of how their upkeep, like, and it may be a little bit, how does they are maintained? Is there something you would like to convey, that some things have to be taken better care by everyone, especially the administration? Did you cover that aspect? No,
Yes.
in your book.
No, I haven't covered that aspect because it's about my journey. But I do give that input in whichever forum I get to invited to give my input. See, if I speak specifically about temples, a lot of ancient temples are under ASI. So it is, which is Archaeological Survey of India, which is a government body which is supposed to maintain it and also document it. Keep proper documentation about the history and the current status of the temple. So they, apart from the World Heritage sites, and apart from some big ones, most temples are just left with a board saying protected monument, which doesn't say anything. So I definitely want much, much better documentation of our temples as well as other heritage sites, because when a tourist comes with curiosity, they are looking for information. So that definitely we can improve the availability of information. Infrastructure, I would say, gradually, slowly, it is improving. It is much better than what it used to be 10 years ago. And it's a continuous process. It will continue to improve, hopefully.
So one of the questions which also comes into the mind of many of the tourists also, that and I'm speaking from a group of tourists, especially the
Mhm.
yogis of America.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I have to ask this question because so many yogis are hosting the show today, and when they when they are talked about India in the US, and especially in the yoga studios, and
Mhm.
they get a very rosy picture, like
Mhm.
everything is fine when you go there, all
Mhm.
difficulties vanish, and like they are in a different
Mhm.
world altogether.
Mhm.
And but when they go to these ASI protected sites, they
Mhm.
see that the temples inside the sanctum sanctorums are mostly empty. and
Yes.
and by the law of the ASI, because the ASI, we had many, BR Money and Dr. KK Mohammed has come on our show many times. So
Mhm.
there is a philosophy in the ASI that there is no worship can be done once it is
No, that's
renovated.
not true. That's
It's not
not true.
true.
That's not true. That's not
Okay.
true because Brihadeshwara temple is a pretty
That's
much
one
all.
different, yeah.
No, no, no. There are many temples. Even Jagannath Puri temple is an ASI temple to that extent. A lot of temples are practicing temples and they are ASI protected temples. So that's not true. That's not universally true. But there is a historical reason. So I can give you 20 things to blame ASI, but this absence of murti in Garbhagriha is not really an ASI's issue, because the murtis were removed historically during invasions mostly, and they have not been reinstated. So the temples have not been, what we call Kumbhabhishekam, that has not been done. The temples have not been maintained and renovated. That you can blame ASI for. But the absence of murtis is more because of historical reasons than any other reason.
So my last question in this series is: so did the Ministry of Culture of India approve your book or travelogue? It's a travelogue is the right word to say for that book.
You can say yes.
Yes. Has they put it on the national map so people can use it?
No, 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 no. It's not so easy to work with the government in India. I don't think they're even aware of the book.
Okay. But it is a very
But
fascinating
what is
book.
interesting is that the feedback I'm getting from readers, and if you have yogis in your session today, I would they would really enjoy this book because this is pretty much Pilgrims India. So this
Uh,
book is taking you through Pilgrims India. It's telling you how stories bind India. It's telling you that history belongs to geography. It is telling you the language of metaphors that connects us across the country. So people who are spiritually inclined, people who come to India as seekers, they would really enjoy this book, I believe. And the feedback that I'm getting from young readers in India is really overwhelming. I'm getting very, very emotional feedback, actually. People are coming out with their own stories and sharing that. They're sharing parallel stories from their own experiences, which is fascinating.
but it's really good effort because very few people are able to express so well. Like I've read your articles, so I can tell you that you have very good expressions that you bring it out. Very few people are able
Thank
to
you.
express that. And I'll recommend to the users, to the viewers who are watching this show, to buy your book. And before they go to India, Lotus in the Stone, and please get it on Amazon. Is available on Amazon.
Yes, you can download it on
And
Amazon. Yes.
Anuradha Goyal, Anuradhagoyal. So
Right,
you can
right.
definitely search on it on Amazon, and you can get the book before you travel to India. And if you're in India, definitely get that book. It must be available on
Thank
Kindle
you.
as well, right?
Yes, it is available on Kindle, and this is another book which is actually a translation from Skanda Puran. It's called Ayodhya Mahatme.
Mhm.
So this is also available on Kindle worldwide. And this, if you should read this book, one to know Ayodhya, the city of Ayodhya, as it was written 2,000 years ago, and as I discovered, is pretty much the same. I mean, everything exists, maybe not in as much glory. Um, You should read this book to see how travelogues were written 2000 years ago.
One of the things about India is that the traditions have maintained the places. In rest of the world, because there were no traditions, things were just destroyed by the. Yesterday, I was speaking on a radio show, and they were
Mhm.
asking me about Aztec history. And the
Mhm.
Aztecs are in southern Mexico. They were in
Yes,
southeastern Mexico,
right.
and the word Aztec is a mispronunciation of the word. Dr. Ram Mena from University of Mexico. I have to quote him. Dr. Mena, if you're
Mm.
watching the show, I'm sorry for that without taking your permission. But he did mention it
Mhm.
is a mistranslation of the word Ashtak,
Mm.
because the predominating deity, which is called the turquoise blue boy, and you can understand who is the blue boy
Mm.
from Indian perspective.
Yes.
He has 8 hands, and that's why it's called Ashtak. And also
Mm.
there are 8 dimensions. And now we
Mm.
hear about 10 dimensions, but here we're talking 8 dimensions, which is also coming from connected with the Indian culture, especially from Tamil Nadu. So
Mhm.
the pyramids or the temples of Tamil Nadu and the temples in Aztec or Aztec uh,
Mm.
has the same dimensions, and
Mm.
it was very well documented that how the 10,000 years back or 15,000 years back there were a lot of travelers coming and influencing the culture of Aztecs. But that's a topic
Mm.
separate, and we'll
Yes.
continue that in our next show. But I would like to cover your next book in the next show.
Okay,
Ayodhya,
sure.
I visited Ayodhya 2018,
Mhm.
and I went there for a ceremony with one major person in India, and I was simply taken aback, especially by Hanuman Gadi, which was
Yes.
my favorite place to go. There's small hills over there. So thank you, Anuradha ji, for coming. I know you are very busy and you have to really work
Thank you.
to come on this show. And and
Thank you so much.
and thank you for all the live audience who joined today and heard Anuradha Goyal. You definitely go Lotus in the Stone. You can go and check it out on Amazon and by Anuradha Goyal, and let me know your feedback. And those of
They
you
can
who
also visit our travel blog, indetails.com, and read a lot of my travel logs. 1,000 plus travel logs are there on the InDetails
what is the
website.
name? Indic Tales.
In details, INDITALS.
Yeah, indietales.com. So please
Yes.
do that. And it's a wonderful experience to travel. I can tell you that. And Americans, I think the coronavirus thing, there are some restrictions there, but you can, if you have the shots, you can travel. So thank you all and namaskar.
Namaste.